So we have a problem here because if there's anybody out there that honestly thinks that the shooting on Memorial Drive by Tyler Brown was just some sort of random act of violence by a lunatic, I think you're really missing the forest for the trees. And look, this guy was a walking, talking failure of every single system inside of this state. And the worst part is, I think that anybody with a lick of common sense could have saw this coming from a mile away. That's the truth. This guy ended up at McLean Hospital. We're going to talk about them in a couple minutes here. But this is one of the so-called most prestigious hospitals, one of the most prestigious psychiatric facilities in the entire country. They're affiliated with Harvard. They have all this stuff going on, right? I looked into them. And he was getting treated there. And by the way, we don't know who the doctors are. We don't know anything like this because of the HIPAA laws. Getting treated for PTSD, anxiety, and depression. That's what this guy was here for. So they end up releasing him on May 8th of 2026. This is just a few days ago. And then 3 days later, he's out on Memorial Drive rolling on the sidewalk with an assault rifle or some sort of rifle, and he's trying to FaceTime his parole officer, and he's screaming like a madman. That's what happened. So, you know, once I saw this happen, I wanted to do a little bit of digging. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see what was the driver here, what led us to this point, and that's what I decided to do. So look at it this way. How does a psychiatric hospital release a violent parolee back into the public without any required coordination from the parole board or from the parole officer? Apparently, I was reading that they don't have to. So what this hospital, what McLean Hospital could do is allegedly they could make a clinical call that allows people like this to just walk right out the front door. There doesn't have to be another parole hearing. There doesn't have to be some sort of special coordination, nothing. So the problem, one of the problems, there's many that we're going to talk about, but one of the problems that I see here is that the parole board, they make the decision initially, right? Then the hospital made theirs, and both of these systems, after somebody is already out on parole, it doesn't seem like there's much communication inside of the middle, right? And that's what allows these people to sort of fall through the cracks. It's a defunct system. At least that's the way it looks to me until we get maybe further into the investigation. So look at it this way. This is how this happened. We had some sympathetic judge that took a chance on this guy. We had a parole board that granted him parole anyway. Then a hospital decides to discharge him with some kind of apparent nonchalant handoff, and a parole officer trying to play catch up over FaceTime while this guy is busy playing Grand Theft Auto inside of Cambridge. That's the truth. That's exactly what happened. But one thing that I spent the last day or so looking through this. One thing that I think a couple people may have missed out on is that McLean Hospital, this isn't the first time that they've let some lunatic out of the asylum. So I was reading that back in 2008, a woman named Marcelle Thibault, I don't know if that's how you pronounce her last name, something like that, but they were diagnosed with bipolar disorder at this hospital, at McLean Hospital. And they kept her for 6 days, and then they sent her home with some pills and a recommendation for outpatient therapy. Then 4 months later, just 4 months later after she's released, this psychopath decides to grab her 5-year-old niece and her 4-year-old nephew from her sister's house. And that same exact night, she drives onto I-495 in Lowell. She crosses the median. She stops her car going the wrong way. She strips herself and the kids down and runs them all into traffic. All three of them dead, gone. That's what happened. This is from the same hospital that released Tyler Brown, okay? The same exact hospital. So then I got to thinking, whatever happened with that? Who was the attorney? Was there a lawsuit? And there was. So the parents of the 2 children that were killed tried to sue the hospital on the basis that the hospital failed to properly treat her, and they basically failed to warn the family about this high-risk woman that decided to kill herself and the 2 children. And you want to know how that case ended? Guess what? I do too, because at no surprise to anybody, nobody knows. No public verdict, no public payout, nothing. Absolutely nothing. The hospital ended up lawyering up. You can't even look to see who the lawyer is or who the attorney was on the case. You have no idea. And all you end up getting is some breadcrumbs from a spokesperson, spokeswoman, whatever you want to call it, and saying that they won't comment on the pending litigation. Then the entire thing fades away. That's more than likely what's going to happen to this guy. After a week or two or whatever, everything will just fall out of the news cycle here in Massachusetts, and it'll be complete history. That's more than likely what's going to happen here. Because, look, it's 20 years or almost 20 years later, right, from when this happened at McLean Hospital, and now we have another psychopath, again, rolling on the road on Memorial Drive, trying to shoot people, shoot at cars, injures 2 people in critical condition. And thank God we had a former Marine that was there. I missed this the other day. I didn't see this, but a former Marine ended up saving somebody's life. And then Mara Healy, I was reading that she, I don't know if she actually properly said something about this guy. I don't even know if she mentioned that it was a former Marine. From her press release that I saw, she had the police officers there, maybe she had the city or something like that, and then she had a public responder or something like that. I mean, come on, guys. It's completely outrageous. And the fact remains here. The judge, the parole board, the parole officer, and the hospital, everybody needs to look into this. If you're a journalist in Massachusetts, you need to dig deeper. I'll do the same. I've already had people reach out to me. But of course, you know, regarding HIPAA laws and all this stuff, there's limited information that they could share. But what I want to try to do here is there shouldn't be this dynamic of a separation between the parole board, the judge, the hospital, all of these things, because what ends up happening is these lunatics end up walking out, they end up getting on parole, they're inside of our communities, and they're not rehabilitated. I just want to warn you guys, you don't need a Harvard degree to figure out that not everybody could be rehabilitated, okay? That's the way that it goes. So I'll continue looking into this. I hope some other people continue to look in this too, and that's it.